You have to wait. If I pull my ear, you can join otherwise.
I'll just keep this.
Okay. Huh? Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Sri Mate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Kartal. Hare Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaur Haribol, 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 Nitai Gaur Haribol. Nitai Gaur Haribol, 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 Nitai Gaur Haribol. Gaura Premanande, Prikshori Harmonium. Come on. Mukharavind on Kartals. Vrindavan Kartals. Balimardan, Satyadev Kartals. For the Hare Krishna chanters. Nitai Gaura Haribol, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribol. Welcome, everyone. Great to see you here on a Wednesday night in the darkness of the winter. I don't think we've reached the longest day of the year yet, or the shortest day of the year yet, have we? Pretty soon. First, I'll start with a prayer of gratitude to my spiritual master for giving me knowledge so that I could come out of the darkness of the material world. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. We'd like to welcome back His Grace Satyadev Prabhu, who's back from his Japan tour. Hare Krishna. He told me he wanted to drive down tonight to ISKCON of Silicon Valley, and ever since I got that message, I've been happy. It doesn't take much to make me happy. And we're continuing with the instructions that Lord Caitanya gave to Rupa Goswami. It's in the 19th chapter of the Madhya Lila of the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. And I'm going to take up a little further along than we were last time, because the instructions that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives to Rupa Goswami begin at text number 136. Pardon me? Prabhu kahe, Shuna Rup Bhakti Ra Shera Lakhan, Sutra Rupe Kahi Vishtarna Jaya Varana. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "My dear Rupa, please listen to me. It is not possible to describe devotional service completely. Therefore, I'm just trying to give you a synopsis of the symptoms of devotional service. Pada pada shunya ghabhira bhakti rasha shindu. Tomai chahaite tar kahi ak bindu." The ocean of the transcendental mellows of devotional service is so big that no one can estimate its length and breadth. However, just to help you taste it, I am describing but one drop. Eti Brahmanda Bhari Ananta Jivagan Chaurashi Laka Yonite Koreye Brahmana. In this universe, there are limitless living entities in 8,400,000 species, and all are wandering within this universe. Purport: this is a challenge to so-called scientists and philosophers who presume that there are living entities on this planet only. So-called scientists are going to the moon and they say there is no life there. This does not tally with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's version. He says that everywhere within the universe there are unlimited numbers of living entities in 8,400,000 different forms. In the Bhagavad Gita 2.24, we find that the living entities are sarvagata, which means that they can go anywhere. This indicates that there are living entities everywhere. They exist on land, in water, in air, in fire, and in ether. Thus, there are living entities in all types of material elements. Since the entire material universe is composed of 5 elements, earth, water, fire, air, and ether, why should there be living entities on one planet and not on others? Such a foolish version can never be accepted by Vedic students. From the Vedic literatures, we understand that there are living entities on each and every planet, regardless of whether the planet is composed of earth, water, fire, or air. These living entities may not have the same forms that are found on this planet Earth, but they have different forms composed of different elements. Even on this earth, we can see that the forms of land animals are different from the forms of aquatics. According to the circumstance, living entities differ, but undoubtedly there are living entities everywhere. why should we deny the existence of living entities in this or that planet? Those who have claimed to have gone to the moon have not gone there, or else, with their imperfect vision, they cannot actually perceive the particular type of living entities there. The living entities are described as ananta, or unlimited. Nonetheless, they are said to belong to 8,400,000 species, as stated in the Vishnu Purana. Jalaja navalakshani stavara laksha vingshati krimayo rudrasankyaka pakshinam dasha lakshanam trimsha lakshani pashava chatur lakshani manushaha. There are 900,000 species living in the water. There are also 2 million non-moving living entities, stavara, such as trees and plants. There are also 1,100,000 species of insects and reptiles, and there are 1 million species of birds. As far as quadrupeds are concerned, there are 3 million varieties, and there are 400,000 human species. Some of these species may exist on one planet and not on another, but in any case, within all the planets of the universe, and even in the sun, there are living entities. This is the verdict of the Vedic literatures. As the Bhagavad Gita 2.20 confirms, Najayate mriyate va kadachin dayam bhutva bhavitavana bhuyaha ajo nitya shashvato yam purano nahanyate hanyamane sharire. For the soul there is neither birth nor death at any time. He has not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. He is unborn, eternal, ever-existing, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. Since the living entities are never annihilated, they simply transmigrate from one life form to another. Thus, there is an evolution of forms according to the degree of developed consciousness. One experiences different degrees of consciousness in different forms. A dog's consciousness is different from a man's. Even within a species, we find that a father's consciousness is different from his son's, and that a child's consciousness is different from a youth's. Just as we find different forms, we find different states of consciousness. When we see different states of consciousness, we take it for granted that the bodies are different. In other words, different types of bodies depend on different states of consciousness. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 8.6. Yang vapi smaran bhavam tajatyante kalevaram tam evaite konteya sadatad bhava pavitaha. One's consciousness at the time of death determines one's type of body in the next life. This is the process of transmigration of the soul. A variety of bodies is already there. We change from one body to another in terms of our consciousness. So one person in this life is thinking, I'm a man, and another person's thinking, I'm a woman. But in a previous life, the man may have been a woman, and the woman may have been a man. Very possible, actually. We just read the chapter in the Japanese class about how Puranjana became a woman in his next life. He was a king, and he was very attached to his wife. And at the time of death, he was in anxiety about how will my children be supported, how will my wife be okay, and everything like that. And so he was fully meditating on his wife at the time of death. And then he became the daughter of King Vidarbha, and his name was Vidarbhi. So he became a woman in his next life. And then he married, someone came along and married him. So it's just interesting how the bodies are always changing in this world according to the state of consciousness. Actually, in the 8th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, there's a very definitive definition of karma, which is helpful to understand the process of changing bodies according to consciousness. And it comes in the 8th chapter, and the verse is number. If you got something to say, say it loud. I can't hear you. 3. Okay. So Krishna says, Aksharam Brahma Paramam Subhavo Dhyatmam Uchate Bhuta Bhavod Bhavakaro Visarga Karma Sangjitaha. And so the Supreme Personality of God had said the indestructible transcendental living entity is called Brahman, and his eternal nature is called Adhyatma, the self. Action pertaining to the development of the material bodies of the living entities is called karma, or fruit of activities. So I'll point out the last sentence in this verse. Action pertaining to the development of the material bodies of the living entities is called karma, or fruit of activities. This is in Sanskrit, Visarga Karma Sankhitaha. So in the purport, Prabhupada says, Brahman is indestructible and eternally existing, and its constitution is not changed at any time. But beyond Brahman, there is Para-Brahman. Brahman refers to the living entity, and Para-Brahman refers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The constitutional position of the living entity is different from the position he takes in the material world. In material consciousness, his nature is to try to be the Lord of matter. But in spiritual consciousness, Krishna consciousness, his position is to serve the Supreme. When the living entity is in material consciousness, he has to take on various bodies in the material world. Now, this is the sentence I'd like to bring to your attention. This is called karma, or varied creation by the force of material consciousness. This relates to the topic at hand. Again, this is called karma, or varied creation by the force of material consciousness. I'll say, please repeat. This is called karma, or varied creation by the force of material consciousness. This is the secret to transmigration of the soul. We're being forced by material consciousness. And there are varied creations because there's varied kinds of consciousness. That's called karma. So in this first section, Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu was pointing out the 8,400,000 species of life, and we heard a verse from the Puranas. This is from the Vishnu Purana describing exactly how many species there are in each life. And you could just look around and see the varieties. Yes, Sudip. Hare Krishna. Where are the microphones?
Let's speak louder.
No, I'll repeat until they bring. Go ahead.
Okay. Is it that the actions that one performs during his lifetime?
Is it the actions that one performs during one's lifetime
That leads to a predominant thought at the time
that leads to a predominant thought at the time of
of death?
death? Usually, yes. That's why you better be careful. You know, that's why we practice while we're in this life, thinking of Krishna, acting for Krishna, and so forth. Because there's a tendency to, garbage in, garbage out, right? They say. And if you're used to hearing all kinds of material sounds, then that's what will be going around in your head. And generally, at a time of helplessness, if you're used to just being swept away by the mind anyway, then that's what will come into your consciousness when you're in a helpless situation.
Hare Krishna.
Okay. And however, in the Shri Ishopanishad, in the verse number 17, Vayur anilamamritam atedam bhashmantam sharinam om kratos smara kritam smara kratos smara kritam smara. Oh my Lord, let this temporary body be burnt to ashes and let the air of life be merged with the totality of air. Now, oh my Lord, please remember all my sacrifices, and because you are the ultimate beneficiary, please remember all that I have done for you. Prabhupada points out that even if one has dedicated one's life to serving Krishna, thinking of Krishna, and somehow or other is not able to think of him at the time of death, the critical point, then Krishna is very merciful, and he helps the devotee to remember him.
One more question, Prabhuji.
Yes.
So, there are 4 lakhs of species in the human being. So, how do we distinguish the 4 lakhs of species? Is there considered just in the earth, or in the earth itself many?
No, Prabhupada said it in the purport. He said in planets all over the universe. And so we're one tiny little speck, this one planet, in the universe. So there's
all the human beings in the earth may be kind of a one, that means? Or
not necessarily. But Prabhupada, when asked this question, was a little nondescript. And I don't know, I haven't found any exact evidence that defines precisely what determines one species from another of human beings. Text number 139. Keshagra Shateka Bhaga Puna Shatam Shakari Tarsham Shukshma Jivera Swarup Vichari. The length and breadth of the living entity is described as 1/10,000th part of the tip of a hair. This is the original subtle nature of the living entity. Keshagra Shatabhagasya Shatamsha Sadrishatmakaha Jiva Sukshma Swarupoyam Sankyatito Hichitkanaha. If we divide the tip of a hair into 100 parts and then take one of these parts and divide it again into 100 parts, that very fine division is the size of but one of the numberless living entities. They are all chitkana, particles of spirit, not matter. Purport. This is quoted from the commentary on the portion of Srimad Bhagavatam wherein the Vedas personified offer their obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Krishna confirms this statement in Bhagavad Gita 15:7. Mamaivam sho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatanaha. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Lord Sri Krishna personally identifies himself with the minute living entities. Lord Krishna is the Supreme Spirit, the Supersoul, and the living entities are his very minute parts and parcels. Of course, we cannot divide the tip of a hair into such fine particles, but spiritually such small particles can exist. Spiritual strength is so powerful that a mere atomic portion of spirit can be the biggest brain in the material world. The same spiritual spark is within an ant and within the body of Brahma. According to his karma, material activities, the spiritual spark attains a certain type of body. Material activities are carried out in goodness, passion, and ignorance, or a combination of these. According to the mixture of the modes of material nature, the living entity is awarded a particular type of body. This is the conclusion. Pretty clear, right? Yeah. Balagra shatabhagasya shatadha kalpitasya cha bhago jiva savigneya iti chaha parashutihi. If we divide the tip of a hair into 100 parts and then take one part and divide this into another 100 parts, that 10,000th part is the dimension of the living entity. This is the verdict of the chief Vedic mantras. Purport. The first three padas in this verse from the Panchadashi Chitra Deep are taken from the Shvetashvataru Upanishad. Sukshmanam apyaham jiva. Lord Sri Krishna says, among minute particles, I am the living entity. Purport. The living entity is one with and different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As Spirit Soul, the living entity is one in quality with the Supreme Lord. However, the Supreme Lord is bigger than the biggest, and the living entity is smaller than the smallest. This quotation is the third pada of a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 11:16-11. Aparamita druvas tanubrito yadi sarvagatas tarhina shashyateti niyamo dhruva nitarita anjanicha yanmayam tad avimucha nirantir bhavet samam anujanatam yad amantam mata dushtataya. This is a verse from the Prayers of Personified Vedas, which disproves the idea of Mayavad. One of the best verses for it, and it's quoted in many places. O Lord, although the living entities who have accepted material bodies are spiritual and unlimited in number, if they were all pervading, there would be no question of their being under your control. If they are accepted, however, as particles of the eternally existing spiritual entity, as part of you, who are the Supreme Spirit whole, we must conclude that they are always under your control. If the living entities are simply satisfied with being identical with you as spiritual particles, then they will be happy being controllers of so many things. The conclusion is that the living entities and the Supreme Personality of Godhead are one and the same is faulty conclusion. It is not a fact. So basically, if you were God, you wouldn't be under control. And prove you're not being controlled. It's ludicrous to assume that you're not. And therefore, the Supreme Controller never comes under control of anyone else. So the living entity, although the same in quality as the Supreme Lord, in quantity is tiny and he is great. He's the controller and we're the controlled. Text 144. Tar madhye stavara jangama dvibhed. Jangame thiraket chal stala chal bibhed. If you're online, we welcome you to the broadcast. And if you'd like to make a text message, it's 650-245-7018. That's 650-245-7018. Please join us by texting in, because we'd love to hear from you. The unlimited living entities can be divided into two divisions, those that can move and those that cannot move. Among living entities that can move, there are birds, aquatics, and animals. Purport. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu was giving clear instructions on how the living entities live under different conditions. There are trees, plants, and stones that cannot move, but still they must be considered living entities or spiritual sparks. The soul is present in bodies like those of trees, plants, and stones. They are all living entities. Among moving living entities such as birds, aquatics, and animals, the same spiritual spark is there. As stated herein, there are living entities that can fly, swim, and walk. We must also conclude that there are living entities that can move within fire and ether. Living entities have different material bodies composed of earth, water, fire, and ether. The words Tara Madhye means within this universe. The entire material universe is composed of 5 material elements. It is not true that living entities reside only within this planet and not within others. Such a conclusion is completely contradictory to the Vedas. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita 2.24, Achedyo yam adahyo yam akledyo shosha evacha nityak sarvakatak sthanur achalo yam sanatanaha. This individual soul is unbreakable and insoluble and can be neither burned nor dried. He is everlasting, present everywhere, unchangeable, immovable, and eternally the same. The soul has nothing to do with the material elements. Any material element can be cut into pieces, especially earth. As far as the living entity is concerned, however, he can be neither burned nor cut to pieces. He can therefore live within fire. We can conclude that there are also living entities within the sun. Why should living entities be denied this planet or that planet? According to the Vedas, the living entities can live anywhere and everywhere, on land, in water, in air, and in fire. Whatever the conclusion, the living entity is unchangeable, sthanu. From the statements of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu and the Bhagavad Gita, we are to conclude that living entities exist everywhere throughout the universes. They are distributed as trees, plants, aquatics, birds, human beings, and so on. Text 145. Tar madhye manusya jati ati alpatara. Tar madhye mlecha pulinda bodha shabhar. Although the living entities known as human beings are very small in quantity, that division may still be further subdivided, for there are many uncultured human beings like mlechas, pulindas, bodhas, and shabaras. Veda nishta madhye ardheka veda mukhi mane, veda nishidha papa kari, dharma nahi kani. Among human beings, there are followers of the Vedic principles. Among human beings, those who are followers of the Vedic principles are considered civilized. Among these, almost half simply give lip service while committing all kinds of sinful activities against these principles. Such people do not care for the regulative principles. Veda Nishta Madhye means among persons who are followers of the Vedas. They're fixed in the Vedas. They're Veda Nishta and Madhye among those. Ardheka, almost half. Veda, Vedic literatures. Mukhe, in the mouth. mane, accept. Just they accept it by lip service, as probably translate this. Veda nishada, forbidden in the Vedas, papa, sins, kare, perform. So they perform all kinds of sinful activities and they just talk about being part of the Vedic culture. Dharma nahe gane. So among human beings, there are the followers of the Vedas. Vedic principles are considered civilized. Among these, almost half simply give lip service while committing all kinds of sinful activities against these principles. Such people do not care for the regulative principles. They give lip service. The word Veda means knowledge. Supreme knowledge consists of understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead and our relationship with Him and acting according to that relationship. Action in accordance with the Vedic principles is called religion. Religion means following the orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Vedic principles are the injunctions given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Aryans are civilized human beings who have been following the Vedic principles since time immemorial. No one can trace out the history of the Vedic principles set forth so that man might understand the Supreme Being. Literature or knowledge that seeks the Supreme Being can be accepted as a bona fide religious system, but there are many different types of religious systems according to the place, the disciples, and the person's capacity to understand. The highest type of religious system is described in Srimad Bhagavatam 126. Thus, Savai Pumsam Paro Dharmo Yato Bhakti Radhoksaje. The highest form of religion is that by which one becomes fully conscious of the existence of God, including His form, name, qualities, pastimes, abode, and all pervasive features. When everything is completely known, that is the perfection of Vedic knowledge. The fulfillment of Vedic knowledge is systematic knowledge of the characteristics of God. This is confirmed by Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita 15:15. Vedaischa sarveraham eva vedya. The aim of Vedic knowledge is to understand God. Therefore, those who are actually following Vedic knowledge and searching after God cannot commit sinful activities against the Supreme Lord's order. However, in this age of Kali, although men profess to belong to so many different kinds of religions, most of them commit sinful activities against the orders of the Vedic scriptures. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu therefore says herein, Veda nishada papakari dharma nahigane. In this age, men may profess a religion, but they actually do not follow the principles. Instead, they commit all kinds of sins. Age of Kali. Bali Dhammardhan Prabhu pointed out the other day some shlokas from the Shastra, which point out that in the age of Kali, some of the actually demoniac people will be born in Brahmin families and so forth, and the whole system gets mixed up. And therefore, one has to look for the gold standard, which is mentioned here, that one actually develops love for God. Ahaitukiya pratiyata. Savai pumsam paro dharmo yato bhaktira hoksajay. Haitukiya pratiyata. Yayatma suprasidati. If one has unmotivated and uninterrupted service to God, this is considered the gold standard, not asking for anything, and Prabhupada points, and also it's uninterrupted. There's nothing, this is for me, that's for God. It's all, one's life is yukta, or completely connected. And Prabhupada points out here that one should have full knowledge also of all the different categories of God. Not that God's over there, and then there are many philosophies actually that profess that God's separate from the creation and so forth. And in the philosophy of Vedanta and the Bhagavat philosophy, we understand God and His energies are actually one and the same, but different at the same time. And therefore there's nothing but God. It's Advaya Gyan Tattva. The truth is that everything is God, but there are divisions, and there are higher and lower energies. And it's important to know these energies. And ultimately, Krishna describes in the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, even though the creation is there and there are all different manifestations of God, still He's separate from all of them. And He has His ultimate supreme position. So it's a great science, and one must know all the categories of information that relate to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then when one knows perfectly, aham sarvasya prabhavo matak sarvam pavartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvita. Proof of understanding is that one acts. And what is that action? Krishna says, if one understands how I'm the source of everything, and everything emanates from me, then he engages in my service with full love and attention. That's the proof one's understood, actually. Are you enjoying these purports? Yes. They're right here in the middle of the Madhya Lila. Yeah, it's a great science, huh? Yes.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Prabhuji, in the previous verse you are reading that...
Here's how to use the mic. Turn it right towards you.
It is on.
Point it right at you. There you go.
The previous verse, when you were reading among living entities,
Yeah.
like you were saying two classes, one
I knew you were
movable.
going to bring this up. Their stones are...
Yes,
you know,
stones, yeah, exactly.
I know.
Stone is a living entity?
There are some, not all stones are living entities, but there are some that actually have some... there have been some stones that have been discovered that have some living features. And Prabhupada also points out in that that there are mountains that are living entities also. That, and he may be referring to that as well. That is that in the Puranas there are descriptions of mountains that actually could fly at certain times. Indra cut them down, cut their wings off with his thunderbolt. And they're living entities. Anyway, living entity will have the symptoms of a living entity. So if you find a stone that has living symptoms, you'll know there's a soul in there. Did you have a question too?
Prabhu, you mentioned about the prayers by the personified Vedas, right? Some time back. Just was curious, like what exactly it means. In many times in Prabhupada's books, we see fear personified, Vedas personified. How do we understand this? Like, what does fear personified mean, for example? Is it
you were about to say, how can, can you finish that question?
Okay.
How can...
I was wondering what it means when Prabhupada says fear personified.
But finish this one sentence. How can something...
How can I forgot.
How can the Vedas be personified? How can they not be personified? Everything's personified. Ultimately, everything's personified, and then those personifications have their energies. In the material world, we see all kinds of forms and shapes that don't have life. They're dead matter. But in the spiritual world, there is no dead matter. Everything's personified. So I'm used to the material world, and when I hear about the spiritual world, it sounds fantastical, but it's not. I mean, it is, in a way, because there's wonderment at every moment how the spiritual world works. In fact, if one's a little astute and not a dull head and looks at the material world, there's wonderment at every second also. At anything you look at, you can just sit there, how did that happen? Who made that? How did it come to be? Or you can just take it for granted and say, it's by chance. In any case, there are personified, living and conscious. Everything's conscious in the spiritual world, and everything in this material world has its origin in the spiritual world because this is a reflection of the spiritual world. So the Vedas are personified; they have their personified forms,
including emotions like fear, anger.
Yes,
these things would also be personified. Okay.
Yeah, they do. And, actually, it's intuitive. You see, when you see kids and you tell them, they go to kindergarten and they say, let's draw a picture. They'll put a house and then they'll put a little smile on the house, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember from kindergarten a lot of stuff. And, draw a sun and the sun has a little face and a smile on it, right? Unless they've come from a bad household, then they'll have a little frown. And the psychologist will come in and say, you're beating your child. And then... But in any case, it's sort of a natural tendency to see everything as personified. But then that sort of gets taught out of people, In fact, Native Americans had had a sense, that there was a living spirit behind each one of the manifestations of nature and stuff. And it's a fact. That's how it works. And even the planets, they're described in Jyotish as living entities. They're actually there's a person behind it. There has to be. That's what runs everything. Matter doesn't run itself. It's run by a conscious living entity. That's how it moves. That's how it expands, manifests, or has energy or influence. It comes from the energetic, which is a conscious person.
Another question. You also mentioned that God and His energies are non-different, right? And also there are different...
They're different and non-different at the same time. Simultaneously, inconceivably, they're one and different at the same time.
Right. Is that where our Vishishta Advaita Chintya Bheda Bheda Tattva, is that where it is different from Madhvacharya's Dvaita philosophy?
It's very slightly different, yes. If you study all the various teachings of the Acharyas, you'll notice slight differences. And you'll see, like from the Vishnu Swami Sampradaya, if you read all about their philosophy of oneness and difference, it's very hard to distinguish. So there's some subtle differences. And yes, Mahaprabhu perfectly encapsulated all of the various teachings that the Vaishnava Acharyas gave, which were very specifically to distinguish us from the Mayavadis. They went at great length to describe how we're different from God and how we're part of His energy at the same time. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave the most perfect explanation, in our opinion, as Gaudiya Vaishnavas. Okay? Anything, Satya? Comments? He needs a microphone. Can you repeat that?
Banuswami, when he was there in Tokyo, when I was in Tokyo, and this topic came up, and he was explaining the subtle differences between Madhvacharya's explanation of God and the difference between oneness and difference. And in the Madhva teaching, they very much stress the difference between God and the living entity in the material world. And in the Ramanuja Sampradaya, the Sri Sampradaya, they're similar to Chaitanya's. They stress that the jiva, the living entity, is simultaneously one and different than God. They stress a little bit more also the difference. And then in the Nimbarka Sampradaya, they stress more the oneness. But it was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu who really came out and stressed both of them equally and explained how inconceivably the living entity is simultaneous and one in difference. And of course, the followers of Shankara, they say absolutely there's only oneness. And therefore everything else is an illusion. The material world is also an illusion. And there's only oneness. And they selectively pick from the Upanishads to support that position, or Shankaracharya did, neglecting all the other verses in the Upanishads that either stress the difference or stress the oneness. They just picked the oneness verses. So he said that. So I found that interesting.
Thank you. That was an excellent contribution. And it's important to read about these things, especially the difference between our philosophy and Mayavad philosophy, which you can do in the Adi Leela of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Prabhupada goes at great lengths to describe how the different aspects of Mayavad are faulty and how the arguments fall apart. Yes.
Can I add something that's not from our Sampradaya, that it's something I read recently that my daughter recommended I read, because she knows I like science and medicine and things. So I read a book called Proof of Heaven recently by a neuroscientist whose name is Eben Alexander. And he's a neuroscientist, and his whole life, practically his whole career, he was absolutely sure that consciousness comes from matter. That that matter is a source of consciousness. And then he had bacterial meningitis, and he went into a coma. And most people do not survive bacterial meningitis. And he had E. coli bacterial meningitis, which is almost unheard of. But anyway, so he was in a coma for 9 days, and he absolutely had no brain activity except for brainstem activity. Everything else was practically gone. And during his coma, he had a near-death experience. So he went into the spiritual realms, and he said the first thing that he was very surprised, usually people that have near-death experiences, they have some sense of their material identity and their loved ones. He had no sense of his material identity. He just had his spiritual identity. And he sensed how he could see 360 degrees. He could smell with his eyes. He could see with his ears. He was having all these experiences. And then he experienced the presence of God. And he said he was so amazed because people make this mistake that God is impersonal. And he said God is the most personal of the persons, and all our humanity, all our human sense is coming from God. And he experienced his oneness with God, but his difference, and how consciousness was the source of matter. And of course, quantum science is confirming this as well, that consciousness is what's manipulating matter as opposed to matter manipulating consciousness or being the source of consciousness. So I just thought I'd throw that in.
Thank you. Also proving that bacterial meningitis is not all bad. No, these are important, anecdotal, but they are inspiring nonetheless, because people do have these personal experiences and become transformed and then write about them and so forth. Shraddha.
I was going to ask a question of Satyadev Prabhu. That did he describe the form of the Lord? Like, did he see Krishna? Or?
No, he said that unfortunately he couldn't see the face of God, and or actually hear the voice, but he heard like telepathic revelations. But he was absolutely sure that God had a face and that was a person. But that part was not revealed.
Ganarvika, are you thinking of the same verse from the Ishopanishad? Hiranmayena patrena? I was just thinking of that when you said that there's a verse in the Sri Ishopanishad, one of our scriptures, which describes a devotee's prayer, and he's saying, "Oh my Lord, please remove the effulgence of your trance so I can see your face." We should send him that verse. Right? Could you do that? Write him a letter and just send him that verse from the Sri Ishopanishad. He might like it, I don't know. Ganarvika?
No, I was just thinking about the other person that we met, that how one person has to be developed to even accept the fact.
Yeah. Are you thinking of the guy the other day?
That's fantasy.
Yeah, we met this fellow. We were actually, he was right down across the street.
He came here.
He came?
He was here, we finished, and he came here, he was discussing with Vaisesika Prabhu.
Really?
Yeah.
Ramananda. Yeah, so he was just a very interested person. We saw this, we were going around an apartment complex across the street, and we saw this arm reaching out the door. The door was closed, but the arm was reaching out because he had a cigarette. Apparently didn't want to smoke inside the apartment. So and then he'd blow the smoke out and he'd hold the cigarette. So I looked down and I pointed to Priya Kishori because we were up above on the balcony. I said, "Look at that arm coming out of the door." And the devotees had already been by there distributing books. And then we heard this voice saying, "I have a question. I have a question." So finally we all realized after we were finished distributing that somebody actually had a question. So we went back over there, and he was sitting inside the door, and he did have a lot of questions. And everything we said, he said, "What was that?"
It was a fantasy. Everything we said to him was a fantasy.
Yeah, and it was. We were left with the feeling that I like the way you put it. It takes a lot of development to bring people to a certain level. Ramananda, you met this fellow that we met across the street, and then how was that experience?
Yeah, he came here, and I don't know whether he's the same person you're referring to, but probably the same person. And he was very serious, and his interest is also very serious, and he talked to me for almost half an hour to 45 minutes.
Sure it's the same person?
Yeah, he's wearing the red shirt, and we tried to give prasadam. He said hi to us.
Did he take prasadam?
No, he didn't take, because he said that he has some dietary restrictions, so he didn't take prasadam. But he did say that he is interested to come here.
Okay.
And Wednesday, he is actually very much interested to come. And Wednesday and Sundays, it's not possible for him because he has some other. But Saturdays, he said he will come.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, it was a wonderful experience. Thank you very much, Ramananda. In the neighborhood, we were meeting all kinds of neighbors, all our neighbors up and down the street, and we were thinking that we will make a plan to make a concentric circle going outward from the temple, so we meet everybody in Mountain View before we go further, because they can all just walk to the temple. It'd be nice. Narendra, you had a question? A point? A comment? Okay. Thank you, Ramananda.
I know one of my friend, and this is fine. One of my friend, he went into this meditation, etc., and he went out of his body, and he says that heaven definitely exists because he went to heaven, and then came back into the body, and he's existing, and he can tell the whole experience, and he says that people should be very careful after death, and the people who are not good, they can be thrown into pig body or anybody, and nobody has a choice. Yeah,
what you just said is all consistent with Shastra. Shastra means scripture. So, and there are hundreds of, if not thousands, of anecdotal stories about people leaving their body and coming back in. In fact, I think Satyadeva Prabhu had experiences with patients who had that happen to them and not want to come back in their bodies, or seeing themselves and remembering and things like that, right? Two out of hundreds. Okay. And we have a text that just came in.
Hare Krishna. Maharaj.
Yes.
I just want to add something that last week in CNN, they were broadcasting this experience, 3 people who went to this death experience and come back and telling their story. I was curiously listening, what is their experience? Same thing, they saying they went back and there was dudas, there's 2 different groups, and arguments what you did, and based upon their activities. And so, it seems like, their experience is same thing what we have.
Consistent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hansapriya Mataji on the phone.
Hansapriya, yes.
Yeah, she was saying the person's name is Mark.
It's Mark. Okay, so Bhakta Mark. Lives across the street, and we welcome him to our community. He's a wonderful person. And he started asking all kinds of really nice questions. And we look forward to seeing him more. Hare Krishna. So we're continuing on text 147 because this is really nice. Dharma chari madhye bahutta karma nishta koti karma nishta madhye eka jnani sheshta. Among the followers of Vedic knowledge, most are following the process of fruitive activity and distinguishing between good and bad work. Out of many such sincere fruitive actors, there may be one who is actually wise. Make a note that door needs some oil, please. That can be easily fixed. It just needs to be lubricated. Purport. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur states that the word karma nishta refers to one who aspires to enjoy the results of his good work and pious activity. Some followers of Vedic principles offer everything to the Absolute Truth and do not aspire to enjoy the results of their pious actions. These are also considered among the karmanishtas. Sometimes we see pious men earn money with great hardship and then spend the money for some pious cause by opening public charities, schools, and hospitals. Whether one earns money for himself or for the public benefit, he is called karmanishta. Out of millions of karmanishtas, there may be one who is wise. Those who try to avoid fruit of activity and who become silent in order to merge into the spiritual existence of the Absolute are generally known as jnanis, wise men. They are not interested in fruit of activity, but in merging into the Supreme. In either case, both the karmanishtas and the jnanis are interested in personal benefit. The karmis are directly interested in personal benefit within the material world, and the jnanis are interested in merging into the existence of the Supreme. The jnanis maintain that fruit of activity is imperfect. For them, perfection is the cessation of work and the merging into the Supreme existence. That is their goal of life. The jnanis want to extinguish the distinction between knowledge, the knower, and the aim of knowledge. This philosophy is called monism or oneness and is characterized by spiritual science. So then there are people who follow the Vedas, but then they either want to enjoy the results that they get from performing pious activities, or they want to extinguish their existence altogether and opt out of the material world in a way that's unnatural. Koti jnani madhye hoy eka jana mukta. Koti mukta madhye dhulab ek Krishna bhakto. Out of many millions of such wise men, one may actually become liberated, mukta. And out of many millions of such liberated persons, a pure devotee of Lord Krishna is very difficult to find. Purport. In Srimad Bhagavatam 10.2.32, it is said that due to their poor fund of knowledge, the jnanis are not actually liberated. They simply think that they are liberated. The perfection of knowledge culminates when one comes to the platform of knowing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavan iti shabdite. The Absolute Truth, Satya Vastu, is described as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Knowledge of impersonal Brahman and the Supersoul is imperfect until one comes to the platform of knowing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is therefore clearly said in this verse, Koti mukta madhye dhulab ak Krishna bhakto. Those who search after the knowledge of impersonal Brahman, or lokais Paramatma, are certainly accepted as liberated, but due to their imperfect knowledge, they are described in Srimad Bhagavatam as vimukta manina. Since their knowledge is imperfect, their conception of liberation is imperfect. Perfect knowledge is possible when one knows the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is supported by Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita 5.29. Bhoktaram yagyatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suridam sarva bhutanam yatvamam shantim richati. A person in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, the Supreme Lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material miseries. Research is going on for the karmis, jnanis, and yogis, but until the search is complete, no one can attain peace. Therefore, the Bhagavad Gita says, Gyatva mam shantim richchati. One can actually attain peace when he knows Krishna. This is described in the next verse. Krishna bhakta nishkam ataiva shanta, bhukti mukti siddhikami sakali ashanta. Another famous verse. Because a devotee of Lord Krishna is desireless, he is peaceful. Fruit of workers desire material enjoyment. Jnanis desire liberation, and yogis desire material opulence. Therefore, they are all lusty and cannot be peaceful. Purport. The devotee of Lord Krishna has no desire other than serving Krishna. Even so-called liberated people are full of desires. Fruitive actors desire better living accommodations, and jnanis want to be one with the Supreme. Yogis desire material opulence, yogic perfections, and magic. All of these non-devotees are lusty, kami. Because they desire something, they cannot have peace. The peace formula is given by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita in 5:29. Bhoktaram yagyatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suridam sarvabhutanam gyatmamam shantim richiti. One who simply understands that throughout the entire universe, Krishna is the supreme enjoyer and beneficiary of all kinds of sacrifices, penances, and austerities, which should be performed only to attain his devotional service, that Krishna is the supreme being and thus the proprietor of all the material worlds, and that Krishna is the only friend who can actually do good to all living entities, suridam sarvabhutanam. One who understands these three principles about Krishna immediately becomes desireless, nishkam, and therefore peaceful. A Krishna bhakta knows that his friend and protector in all respects is Krishna, who is able to do anything for his devotee. Krishna says, Kaunteya pratijanihi name bhaktya pranashiti. O son of Kunti, declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. Since Krishna gives the assurance, the devotee lives in Krishna and has no desire for personal benefit. The background for the devotee is the all good himself. Why should the devotee aspire for something good for himself? His only business is to please the Supreme by rendering as much service as possible. A Krishna bhakta has no desire for his own personal benefit. He is completely protected by the Supreme. Avashya rakshibe Krishna vishvas palana. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that he is desireless because Krishna will give him protection in all circumstances. It is not that he expects any assistance from Krishna. He simply depends on Krishna just as a child depends on his parents. The child does not know how to expect service from his parents, but he is always protected nevertheless. This is called nishkam, desireless. Isn't that a nice example? The child doesn't know how to expect service from his parents, but he's protected nonetheless. Although karmis, jnanis, and yogis fulfill their desires by performing various activities, they are never satisfied. A karmi may work very hard to acquire $1 million, but as soon as he gets $1 million, he desires another million. For the karmis, there is no end of desire. The more the karmi gets, the more he desires. The jnanis cannot be desireless because their intelligence is unsound. They want to merge into the Brahman effulgence, but even though they may be raised to that platform, they cannot be satisfied there. There are many jnanis and sannyasis who, after taking sannyas and giving up the world as false, return to the world and engage in politics and philanthropy, or to open schools and hospitals. This means that they could not attain the real Brahman, Brahma Satyam. They have come down to the material platform to engage in philanthropic activity. Thus, they again cultivate desires. And when these desires are exhausted, they desire something different. Therefore, the jnani cannot be nishkam or desireless. Nor can the yogis be desireless, for they desire yogic perfections in order to exhibit some magical feats and gain popularity. People gather around these yogis, and the yogis desire more and more adulation. Because they misuse their mystic power, they fall down again to the material platform. It is not possible for them to become nishkam, desireless. The conclusion is that only the devotees who are simply satisfied in serving the Lord can actually become desireless. Therefore, Caitanya Mahaprabhu says here, Krishna Bhakta Nishkam. Since the Krishna Bhakta, the devotee of Krishna, is satisfied with Krishna, there's no possibility of fall down. Yes. Gandharvika.
So, if we actually see this, the real purport of the verse, Prabhupada says that one is, I hope this is the right question to ask, but only a devotee should be desireless and he's peaceful. But I also understand that, like even in the beginning stages, we are like unripe mangoes, that example. But sometimes, like when we do service or things, when people come together as other endeavors, there is some agitation. Like, how can we say that the devotees are desireless and peaceful? Because if it is peaceful, then everybody who comes in service in Krishna must be like adoring others for doing their service and be peaceful. But sometimes we feel that heat, that even within devotees, is it because the desire is not set in the proper place? Why do we feel like that?
That means we feel a sense of what?
A sense of agitation. It's almost
Agitation.
it's almost like doing any other. It means activity is Krishna consciousness. It's purifying, but the consciousness is not.
Well, I can say some things from personal realization, and also, we can talk about what the Shastra says as well. My personal realization is that there's a way in which the ego always wants to I remember the word I was using before. It's not usurp, there's another word. Appropriate. The false ego wants to appropriate everything. And whatever one does, beginning in devotional service, then the false ego can come in and say, "Oh, that's good. I'll use that for me, to show that I'm a great devotee," or something like that. And in this stage of devotional service, where one is still affected by the sense of wanting some adulation or something like that for one's service, then there's agitation in the mind, because everyone else does too. And that's why there's agitation in the material world generally, because everyone's competing for the same spot. And there's a way in which, however, if one actually cultivates a sense that this service is for Krishna, and who cares what anybody else thinks, because Krishna knows what it is, and it's all I can do anyway. I can't impress other people because they're too busy trying to impress other people. They're trying to show themselves as I'm somebody. So why compete anymore? I think there's a point at which, when you give up trying to compete, actually, even if it's just for a moment, you can experience for yourself that there's actually peace. And in my experience, it comes from deeply hearing and chanting and getting your own taste. Because if you realize actually that there's a taste in hearing and chanting, and you don't need anything else, why put yourself out for it? You do your duty dutifully, and your only reward you're looking for is more hearing and chanting, actually, and more opportunity to serve. Then there really is no agitation. And if you're around somebody that's in that mode, you'll find that you're not agitated by them. When somebody when the false ego is always trying to appropriate everything, if you're around somebody like that, you'll notice it right away. It's like someone who just ate, several pounds of garlic, and they walk in the room, and all of a sudden it's like, wait, who was that? It's sort of the odor comes out. And so when there's a sense of ego, that comes out in one's dealings with others. And when somebody actually is becoming free of that, or is free of it, you'll notice that also. And people do notice. So in the beginning, although I take to devotional service, my false ego might appropriate whatever I get in devotional service, and there'll be some kind of agitation and conflict within my consciousness. So one should learn to perform devotional service, which is for the satisfaction of the spiritual master, for Krishna, not for oneself. And amazingly, one will have an experience that just as if you put food in the stomach, then automatically everything's okay. Everything's okay. If you serve, you still get everything. You're not going to miss anything. The false ego says you're going to miss out, but you don't miss out by surrendering to Krishna and serving Krishna. And it's that conviction which is acted upon and the experience that comes from doing it, the complete satisfaction, that makes one eager to actually move out of the storm that comes from the mind's demands and the ego's demands that, get back in the center, you're missing it. And after a while, if you see the alternative, which is to surrender to Krishna and become his servant, it's actually a beautiful proposition, an alternative. Did it answer your question? Or is there more to it?
Yes, Prabhuji, it answers my question. I was just it's just for my... Is there a situation like that exists, like within ISKCON, that like any conversation? I mean, I'm not saying that everybody agrees to or anything like that, but I was just saying that assembly where like everybody appreciates each other, and I think it must be really like Naimisharanya. So I was just...
It could be really sweet. I had an experience when we were in Govardhan this year during Prabhupada's Tirobhav. That means the day we celebrate every year when our founder Acharya left. He left his body and went back to Godhead. So, we get together on that time and have readings and remembering him and things like that. And there was a group of senior disciples who were there at Govardhan, and there were no time restrictions. You didn't have to limit yourself to 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or anything. It was like, speak as long as you can. And we'll stop when we stop. It worked out fine. And it was palpable that there were advanced devotees there, and they were all in this mood of glorifying Prabhupada without, you could sense it, that they weren't holding anything back. There were some young devotees there. Afterwards, I talked to a lot of devotees who said it was a phenomenal experience. And even one of the sannyasis was there, was telling me, he said, I have a very high demand for, the Krishna Katha that I'm hearing has to be like really on a high level for me to keep my interest for that long. And I think we were there for about 6 hours or 7 hours or something like that. And he said everyone had like rapt attention. And he was saying I had rapt attention. He said it was like unusual, and the level of expression that was coming out was so powerful. And we felt as if, I hate to use the cliche, but we were in a bubble, and we were experiencing something unusual. And and the young devotees that were there was a devotee who comes from a devotee family, a young devotee, and hadn't been initiated yet. And he was raised in a family where his father was a little bit like, you better be careful, don't become initiated by anybody because there's only Prabhupada, and there were all these kinds of feelings. And he said, after listening to all these glorifications of Prabhupada, he said, he came up and actually some tears were coming. He said, I've wasted my whole life. I want to, surrender and become involved. It was moving. It was a moving experience, and we all felt it. And it was because everyone came together. No one was putting themselves in the center. They were glorifying a great Vaishnav. And the level of realization was very high. And in that kind of assembly, there's a possibility of experiencing no agitation, just nectar, just happiness. And that's what we're meant to experience. When we hear the verse, Satam prasangam mama virya samvido bhavanti hrit karna rasayana kata, from Lord Kapila Dev, where he said, in this assembly of Satam. Satam means the hearts are dedicated to, pure devotional service, nothing else. No one's trying to steal the show. They're truthful, pure devotees. In that kind of assembly, you'll experience automatic advancement. Anukramishramiti means step by step. You'll become advanced just by being in that assembly and hearing. And it's a fact that if you get around somebody who's not motivated, who is actually satisfied, like this, nishkama, and is talking about Krishna and teaching about Krishna and so forth, there's a weightiness to it. Just as Dhruva Maharaj, when he was able through yogic mystic power to actually control the universe, in the breathing of the universe. This is possible by yogis. There are subtle laws in the universe, and through complete dedication, focus, and concentration on certain elements, there's ways that you actually become connected with them in a way that you can manipulate them and so forth. And he was able to do that. And everyone was affected in the whole universe, including the demigods who said, uh-oh, another Hiranyakashipu coming here. And the Lord, assured him, no, it's a devotee. It's okay. I'm going to go benedict him and everything. And Prabhupada points out in his purports to that section that one person who has this pure motivation can affect the whole world, just as Dhruva Maharaj did. Can have a profound effect on everyone, because it's such a weighty thing to move yourself out of the center. And if you have one drop of this intention that I'm going to practice pure devotional service, I'm noticing that my false ego is appropriating everything, and I'm practicing not identifying with that, and actually identifying with my real self, which is Krishna Das, it's a servant of Krishna. Someone with that motivation is unstoppable, and their association is very much noticeable. It's noticeable that there's a kind of power to it. It's infectious. It is motivating to others and so forth. You can see. If someone it's a very subtle thing, but we are subtle. The living entity is very subtle. We pick up all these things. Even in the material world, we notice, people know when a cheater is around. Of course, a lot of people want to be cheated, so they don't mind. But, if people notice these subtle things that, such and such was a cheater, such and such is trying to be noticed, and so forth. And, it's a whole big boat of people floating in the material ocean. But if some person is not motivated in that way, it becomes noticeable. It's a rare thing. That's what's being pointed out here. It's rare. Everyone's either uninterested, either they're not in the program at all. They're like animals. Animals and plants and all these birds that are being mentioned here are controlled by the modes of material nature. And when you come out of an egg, you start chirping, and that's what you do. And then you're gonna have a bird nature, because that's what you got. And there's no wiggle room. But when you come to the human form of life, then there's a possibility. But even amongst the human beings, he's saying there are not that many that are connected to a regulated system of religion like Varnashram. And even those in that system, most of them just talk about it, but they don't actually do it. And amongst those who do it, then there's some that are motivated, and there's very few that aren't. And he's just describing this pure devotee. And we already heard the teachings to Sanatana Goswami that this is how devotional service begins, that's how it's sustained, and that's how one comes to perfection, is by associating with pure devotees. You find a pure devotee and you associate. It's the rarest thing, and you'll get everything from that. You'll get the rays, as is mentioned in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and the Nectar of Devotion. The rays from the heart of such a person actually have an effect on people who don't even know about devotional service. They can actually start experiencing symptoms of advanced symptoms of bhakti because of the reflected rays that are coming from the hearts of a pure devotee, and so forth. It's so important. Vishakha Lila. Here comes the microphone.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. We were talking about the devotees, pure devotees, not having any desires. Because whenever there are desires, and it is not met, it's not fulfilled, then there is an agitation. But what about spiritual desires? Because sometimes I feel even when the spiritual desires are not fulfilled, there is so much agitation, and then there is so many questions in the mind. So should the devotee just not have any desires and just depend on Krishna? Or is it okay for a devotee to develop spiritual desires to serve
Well, it's
Krishna?
not a matter of okay or not okay. Every living entity has desire. It's the symptom of a living entity to have desire. That's our nature. And so then you've made an important distinction that there are material desires and spiritual desires. Material desires are misinformed desires that are disconnected from one's real interest, which is serving Krishna's desires. But when one has spiritual desires, yes, there can be agitation. There is agitation in that also. There's agitation in the spiritual world as well. But paradoxically, to our minds, it's the greatest kind of happiness. There's happiness in that agitation, because it's not material; it's spiritual. There's no reaction from that, and it's actually there are spiritual emotions which are meant to serve Krishna, and there's a sense of, even in the spiritual world, there's a sense of competition amongst the devotees. However, there's no envy, and that is that one sees another devotee doing better service and then has that sort of a pang that, oh, why couldn't I do that well? But there's simultaneously, Prabhupada said, an appreciation for the other person's service, that they're serving Krishna so nicely. But then there's an impetus that, let me do well, but the main interest is, let Krishna be served nicely. The clamor is not that I should be noticed for my service, but that I could have served Krishna better, therefore there's a competition. And so Krishna is completely the center. And all the emotions are there, and we see that, Rupa Goswami goes through this in the Nectar of Devotion and explains how all the emotions, when connected to devotional service, they're all spiritual. Or I should say, the original emotions are all spiritual. When they become covered by the intention to enjoy separately from Krishna, then they become material emotions, and they cause grief and agitation. But that those inebrieties are not there in the spiritual agitation.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay. And now we have... Okay, any other questions or points? I'll read one more verse, and then I promised I was going to talk about goal setting. I hope that's not too abrupt after all this philosophy. But it's getting close to the end of the year, and it's a good time to talk about setting goals. Let's see what the next verse looks like, and then, okay, here's an important verse. This is verse 150. Muktanam api siddhanam narayana parayanaha sudurlabha prashantatma kotishvapi mahamune. O great sage, out of many millions of materially liberated people who are free from ignorance, and out of many millions of siddhas who have nearly attained perfection, there is hardly one pure devotee of Narayan. Only such a devotee is actually completely satisfied and peaceful. Purport: this verse is quoted from the Srimad Bhagavatam 6.14.5. The Narayana Parayana, the devotee of Lord Narayan, is the only blissful person. One who becomes a Narayana Parayana is already liberated from material bondage. He already possesses all the perfections of yoga. Unless one comes to the platform of Narayana Parayana and passes over the platform of Bhukti Mukti Siddhi. Bhukti means, I want to enjoy something for myself. Mukti means, I want to renounce the world and become God. And Siddhi means, I practice yoga for getting some mystic power. Unless he passes over this Bhukti Mukti Siddhi platform, he cannot fully be satisfied. That is the pure devotional stage. Anyabilashitam, Anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karma nyanavritam anukulyena krishna nushilanam bhaktirutama. One who desires nothing but Krishna and who is not influenced by the process of jnana marg, cultivation of knowledge, actually becomes free from ignorance. A first-class person is one who is not influenced by karma, fruit of activity, or yoga, mystic power. He simply depends on Krishna and is satisfied in his devotional service. According to Srimad Bhagavatam 6.17.28, Narayana para sarvena kutashana bibhyati. Such a person is never afraid of anything. For him, heaven and hell are the same. Not knowing the situation of a Narayana Parayana, rascals become envious. By the grace of Narayan, a devotee is situated in the most opulent position in the material world. Rascals are envious of Narayan and his devotees, but the devotee endeavors to please another devotee of Narayan because he knows that by pleasing Narayan's representative, one directly pleases Lord Narayan. Therefore, a devotee offers the best comforts and facilities to his spiritual master. Outsiders who have no knowledge of Narayan are envious of both Narayan and his devotee. Consequently, when they see that Narayan's devotee is opulently situated, they become even more envious. But when the devotee of Narayan asks such foolish people to come to live with him in the same comfortable situation, they do not agree, because they cannot give up illicit sex, meat eating, intoxication, and gambling. Therefore, the materialist refuses the company of a Narayana Parayana, although he is envious of the devotee's material situation. In Western countries, when ordinary men, storekeepers and workers, see our devotees living and eating sumptuously and yet not working, they become very eager to know where they get the money. Such people become envious and ask, how is it possible to live so comfortably without working? How is it that you have so many cars, bright faces, and nice clothes? Not knowing that Krishna looks after his devotees, such people become surprised and some become envious. Hare Krishna. Now it's getting close to the end of the year, and this is a very good time. May I do this now? Yes. Okay. This is a very good time to start turning one's attention towards goals for one's life, various types of goals, and also reflecting back on how the last year went. Good juncture. So take some time. Find some time when you can. It takes a little time. You can't just do it in an instant because we're moving so fast. There's so many ideas and thoughts and plans and worries that are coming into our mental system in every minute, that if you just stop suddenly and I can't think of anything. Let's just do what we did last year. It's all right. But take some time to unwind. If you can, take a few days off and go by yourself or with your spouse, or to take some time just to reflect and think about what you've done. It's good to have a very strong spiritual practice on those days, so you can be centered and peaceful. And start in the morning, have very strong, and then take some time. You can just sit and say, let's just say you're married and you have a relationship where you can talk to your spouse. You can sit down and begin discussing, how did things go last year? And it's amazing, actually, to recount all the things that went on and reflect back. You have to take the experiences and remember what happened to you during the year. Where were the highs? Where were the lows? Where were the mistakes? Where were the points where you did really well that you've forgotten about? And right now you're feeling low self-esteem, but actually you had a really good year and there were things about it that were really wonderful. Go back and collect those things up. Remember. It means to bring them back and connect to them and think about it. It's your life. And there are all these things going on in your life. Don't just fly through and forget about it. Interesting, I got a letter from my sister who has pancreatic cancer. I'm going to see her in a couple of days, next week. And she just, how people write a little newsletter and they send it out for the holidays. And in it, she was mentioning that, that she probably has about 6 months. And then she was saying, when you have 6 months, you start thinking about all the things that you should have done, that you shouldn't have held back. She was actually saying, she felt grateful for her life because there are a lot of things that she has been able to do and so forth. But then she said, when you only have 6 months, the likelihood is that you won't be well enough to actually do what you need to do. So don't wait. And there's the law of forced efficiency. And that is, I know this all the time because I travel a lot, that when the travel date comes and the cab's going to come to take me to the airport, that's the hardest deadline there is. The airplane, in fact, I have dreams sometimes that I'm running for a plane and I can't find my ticket or something like that. But I know, like, I'm getting ready early in the morning, the cab's coming and you got to get in the cab. Cab's the things ticking and everything like that. I get really efficient the last few days before I'm about to travel. Okay, I'm doing it now. It's a boom, boom, boom. You start doing it. We can do those things. We can be more efficient in our life if we voluntarily set goals for ourselves and timelines for things that we want to get done. And it makes a much more productive life materially and spiritually. Sankhya Purvaka Namagana Natibi Kalavasani Krito. The Goswamis of Vrindavan set goals, and they counted how much they were doing their bhajan every day and so forth. And when we do it too, we actually grow and we have progress. We get progress. So, your mind needs a target. If your mind doesn't have a target, it becomes morose. And Prabhupada mentions this in the Bhagavad Gita. And as soon as you have a target, the second you have a target to shoot for, the mind starts thinking how to do it. It's miraculous. As soon as you set an objective and you say, I'm going to reach this goal within a certain amount of time, even if you sit down and you're drinking a glass of grapefruit juice, your mind will start calculating how you're going to reach that goal. And as soon as you go to sleep, even the mind will be calculating at that time how to reach the goal. So, decide on your own goals. Don't let them be forced upon you. Don't let them be imposed upon you by nature and so many things. You get to decide. You make the decision. And then your purpose can be strong. So that's one of the first points, is that you must have strong purpose. And as soon as you set some goals that are very meaningful to you, your life will have more purpose in it. Dhruva Maharaj had a strong purpose, didn't he? You know the story of Dhruva Maharaj. His purpose was so strong, even his spiritual master came and said, go home, this is not the time, you're too young and everything. He said, forget it, I'm going. You have to be like that. And so you have to have something that you're really eager to go for, besides just the status quo, besides the things that you have to do because you've been forced into it by the laws of material nature. And prioritize. Take time. It's your life. You can prioritize and decide what are the things that are most important to you. As Stephen Covey used to say, just always remember that the main thing is the main thing. Keep the main thing the main thing. Don't get into all these other extra things that aren't really important. Find out what the main thing is to you. If you don't know what the main thing is, like people ask you, what's your main thing in life? And you don't know, you're in trouble. And then you get to practice persistence. And that's one of the best teachers in the world, is persistence. That I've watched people. I remember I had an experience once when I was at O'Hare Airport distributing books back in the probably early 80s or late 70s. And it was a terrible night. Usually it was great Friday night. For some reason, everything was going wrong. And no one was stopping. And I was starting to think, it's not worth it, and I'm not going to try as hard. And there was one devotee out there that usually didn't do so well at distributing books, but I just saw him. He kept persisting. And I have to admit, there was something in my mind. I was thinking, he won't succeed. He's trying so hard. He's not going to do anything. If I can't do it, he can't do it. That was the sort of the cynical mind thinking like that. And then we all got in the Sankirtan van. We were driving home. And he had done huge and better than anyone else. And back then it was like a really big thing, who did what, and so forth. And it always marked me. I thought, never again am I listening to you in your cynical ways. I'm going to persist. And so this persistence is very powerful. If you can apply that in your life to simple things, simple tasks, things that look like they're impossible to do, if you have a goal and you prioritize and your purpose is strong, you can persist. And you can wear holes in stone through persistence. Prabhupada used to say, drops a day wear the stone away. And it's a fact. If you're just persistent at something, like practicing, you want to just, it doesn't matter what age you are, you say, I'm going to learn this new skill. So if you persist, after a while, you'll get good. And, other cynics will be looking, he'll never get good. Oh, what happened? Now he's a high court judge and so forth. It's very inspiring when people persist, and it's very powerful. Regarding procrastination, a couple of quotes that I really like. It's amazing how long it takes to complete something that you're not working on. The trouble with doing nothing is that you never know when you're finished. There's a lot about procrastination, but it's one of the great enemies of our lives. And when I was contemplating my goals, Nirkula and I go away always for at least 3 or 4 days at the end of the year. And we just take time to really write down our goals and think about how we did last year and so forth. I'm just doodling in one of my books where I think and I write on the paper and stuff. And one of the things phrases I had written was a zero procrastination policy, which means war on the mind and procrastination. You have to declare war on procrastination. And if you're not declaring war on procrastination, he'll come and just take over your whole system and ruin your life. Just ruin your life. And then you'll end up in that last 6-month period and you'll think, why didn't I do this? Why didn't I, And so fight procrastination. Fight the righteous fight. Some reasons people don't set goals. They don't have good reasons to set goals. You have to have reasons. In other words, if you can prioritize and come up with things that you really want to attain, and you have a strong purpose, then set goals. Another is that they don't know how effective it is. It's so effective. It's like magic. They don't know how. Another is they fear they might fail. And 5, they feel overwhelmed, being too busy and disorganized. These are some reasons. There may be many more. But human beings have a built-in goal-setting tendency. Prabhupada set all kinds of goals for himself and was very regulated and determined at achieving them, and miraculous things happened. I mean, he had these goals to start a worldwide society, and he started while he was in India, and he failed. And he came to America, and it looked like he was going to fail again, but he persisted because his purpose was so strong, unbreakable. And look what happened. I mean, it's amazing what you can do if you just persist. And sometimes it may look like nothing's going to happen, and most people think, like, don't try so hard, don't keep persisting. But you have to have your own internal reason why you're going for it and have that strong goal. So set these goals. There are many different kinds of goals, which obviously I'm not going to get to tonight, so take this as an introductory to something else we'll take up more in the beginning of January. One very powerful way to set goals is set 30-day goals. 30-day goals are so amazing. Just like when Kartik, a lot of devotees come and they set spiritual goals for Kartik, and then they feel their self-esteem, spiritual self-esteem goes way up. Kartik is a special month, 30 days during which the devotees, you get extra credit for your spiritual activities. So devotees concentrate their goals on that month. But you can do it any month. And it doesn't have to be huge, but if you do something even small and you say, for 30 days I'm going to do this, and you write it down on paper. See, the thing about the 30-day goal is it's long enough so you can actually start a new habit in your life, and it's short enough that you can see the end of it so you can actually persist and tolerate and do that. So why not set 30-day goals? I mean, who can stop you? That's the exciting thing about this. No one can prevent you from moving ahead with your life and changing yourself. And you can do it. That's what's exciting about being a human being, and different from being a spider or an alligator or something like that. You can actually decide to do this and go for it. Okay, a few goal-setting tips. I'm going to go through this quickly, and we'll come back to these in another class. But here's one of the most powerful pieces of advice about goal-setting, mantra that I picked up from Jim Rohn, who is a fantastic motivational speaker. And he said, decide what you want and write it down. Decide what you want and write it down. And as soon as you do that, you've manifested from the subtle to the gross. It's starting to manifest itself in physical form, and it'll grow from there. And that is such a powerful process. First, deciding what you want. So like as a family, or say, you get together and you say, what do we want? It's like, I don't know. You better decide. And if you ask an individual, what do you want? And they say, I'm not sure. Or they have some very, superfluous kind of idea about what they want, they're in trouble. They don't have the right thing. Anchor yourself with what you really want. Decide what you want. That's a big thing. You have to take time to do this. Decide what you really want in your life, then write it down. The United States, the Constitution of the United States is written down. You know what? If they didn't write it down, if Ben Franklin and all those Thomas Jefferson and all those founding fathers of America didn't write it down, we wouldn't be sitting in America right now, I guarantee you. There would be no America. The reason that they thought it up, they said, let's come up with this plan for a country that, everyone has freedom and, the government has balance to it. There's no more king and all this kind of stuff. And they just thought it up. And they said, this would be ideal and it'll be one nation under God. Let's write it down. So they all sat together and they said, and put that in and put that in. What about Thomas's thing? Yeah, Jefferson, get over here. Put your thing in here. And then, they put it all together and then they said, okay, we're signing it. This is our thing. This is what we're sticking to. Give me liberty or give me death. And they wrote it down and they put it up on the wall and it's still there in Washington, D.C. And that's what the whole country's founded on. A whole country with streets and roads and a legal system. It's all based on that document. That's where it all came from. And your life is like that too. You get to decide. Decide what you want and write it down and make it your document. If you don't have your own Declaration of Independence on your wall, you're not getting the most out of life that you can. So this is the time of year. It's dark outside. It's time for reflection. The light's going to come soon. The plants are going to come out and be enlivened by the sun rays that will be coming in as the days lengthen. And we should also, time now to dig deep and find out what it is what are those priorities in our life, and make sure they're written down and then put them in a visible place. There's a lot more in this that's really exciting about goal setting. Those are a couple things for now. And even that one mantra, decide what you want and write it down, can get you started in the goal setting process. Do it, take the time, and your year will be completely different than if you don't do this. Don't just go drifting. Set a sail by writing this down and deciding what you want to achieve. And you'll be propelled through the whole year in a very powerful way. Go Premanande Haribo! So we thank everyone tonight for coming to this yajna. This was a yajna, to come here and sit, to hear transcendental sound vibration, to chant Hare Krishna. And everyone will be eternally blessed for this one activity. And now we're going to move on to the next section, which will be a kirtan. Satyadev Prabhu and I have to abscond. We're leaving because I have a very early flight in the morning, and I still have some preparation to do before I leave in the morning to catch my flight. May I please be allowed to leave just after the Artik starts, and to meet you all back here next week. Please. Can I get a yes, please? Vrindavan, is it okay? Okay. Vrindavan Priya said yes, so thank you very much, everyone. And I'm going to Toronto, and I'll be back on Tuesday, and I'll see you for Christmas. Hare Krishna. Hare Bo. Yes.
Yeah.
Dimitri Prabhu actually set the example when you mentioned about the oiling of the door. He right away went it and he actually fixed the problem.
Yeah, that was good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
रातिक शोभा जग जनमना लोभा गौरांगेरा रातिक शोभा जग जनमना लोभा जग जन मन लोभा जग जन मन लोभा पिताय गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल दक्षिणे निताय चाँद बामे गदधारा Kibadakhine nitai chan Bame gadadhara Nitai gadadhara Vikate advaita shrini Vasa Chatradharani Nikate Advaita Shrini Vasa Chatradharani Advaita Shrini Chatra Boshi Ache Gaurachan Ratna Simhasane Ache Gaurachan Simhasane Kiba Boshi Ache Gaurachan Ratna Simhasane Arati Korena Brahma Adi Devagane Arati Korena Brahma Adi Devagane Arati Korena Nara Hadiyadi Kori Chamara Dhulaya Nara Hari Nara Hadiyadi Kori Chamara Dhulaya Nara Dhulaya Chamara Dhulaya Sanjaya Mukunda Vasu Goshadigaya Sanjaya Sanjaya Mukunda Vasu Goshadigaya Gaya Mukunda Vasu Adigaya Shankha Baje Ghanta Baje Baje Karatala Kiba Shankha Baje Ghanta Baje Baje Karatala Shankha Madhura Mridanga Baje Paramarasala Dhura Mridanga Para मधुरा मृदंग बाजे परम रसाला मधु बाजे शंख बाजे घंटा बाजे मधुर 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 बाजे शंख बाजे घंटा बाजे मधुर 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 बाजे माधुर 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 बाजे माधुर 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 बाजे हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल बहु कोटि चंद्र जीनी वदन उज्ज्वला चंद्र जीनी वदन उज्ज्वला बहु कोटि चंद्र जीनी वदन उज्ज्वला गला देशे वनमाला करे झलमाला आदेश गला देशे वनमाला करे झलमाला शिवा शुक नारदा प्रेमे गदा गदा शिवा शिवा शुक नारदा प्रेमे गदा गदा भक्ति विनोदा देखे गौरा संपादा भक्ति विनोदा देखे गौरा संपादा श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद प्रभु नित्यानंद Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Radha Madan Mohan Radhe Jaya Radha. Jaya Radha Madan Mohan Radhe. Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha Jaya. Jaya Mahaprabhu Jaya Mahaprabhu Jaya Mahaprabhu Jaya Mahaprabhu. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakacarya Ashtotar Sada Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakacarya Ashtotar Sada Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. Naam Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरी गोवर्धन की जय। श्री वृंदावन मथुरा धाम की जय। नवद्वीप मायापुर धाम की जय। गंगामय यमुनामय की जय। तुलसी देवी भक्ति देवी की जय। ट्रांसेंडेंटल बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन की जय। December marathon ki jai. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga.
Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Praladadayine. Praladadayine. Hiranyakashipurvakshaha. Hiranyakashipurvakshaha. Shilatankanakalaye. Shilatankanakalaye. Ito Nrsimha Parato Nrsimha. ito nrsimha parato nrsimha. Ito nrsimha parato nrsimha. Yato yato yami tato nrsimha. Yato yato yami tato nrsimha. Bahi nrsimha hridaye nrsimha. Bahi nrsimha hridaye nrsimha. Bahi nrsimha hridaye nrsimha. Bahi nrsimha hridaye nrsimha. Narasimhamadim sharanam prapadye. Narasimhamadim sharanam prapadye. Avakara kamalavare nakam adbhuta shingam dalita hiranyakashipu tanu bringam keshavadita narahari rupa jai jagadisha hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jaya Jagadisha Hare. Keshavadita Narahari Rupa Avakara kamalavare nakam adbhuta shingam dalita hiranyakashipu tanu bringam keshavadita narahari rupa jai jagadisha hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jaya Jagadisha Hare. Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Narahari. Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. निताई गौर प्रेमानंदे, हरि हरि बोल। नरसिंहदेव भगवान की, भक्तराज प्रहलाद महाराज की, श्रील प्रभुपाद की, समवेद गौर भक्तवृंद की, निताई गौर प्रेमानंदे, हरि हरि बोल।
Is anybody here for the first time? Or second time? Or less than 10th time? There we have one hand. What is your name? Stacy? Okay, welcome Stacy. Anybody less than 10th time is a newcomer to ISV? Oh, here. What are your names? Deepak and Ankita. First time? Less than 10th time. Okay. The earlier Bascom temple. Oh. First time here? Second time. Okay. Welcome. Thank you for being here tonight. We have a relatively less crowd on Wednesdays, but it's nice and cozy, and you can freely talk amongst to the other devotees. If you have any questions, please let us know. We have regular programs 3 days a week on Wednesday night, like today, on Saturday morning, and on Sunday evening. If you come on Sundays, you'll see the whole temple is full, and there are many devotees here. So, please let us know if you have any questions. And this month we are having a massive drive for distributing Bhagavad Gitas everywhere. So if you do not have one, you should certainly get a copy today. And next we'll just serve prasadam, and that will be. Yes. You want to announce the cooks?
Is Avantika online? Okay, last time she was online. I think the prasadam was cooked by Bhaktavatsal Prabhu and Parthasarathi Prabhu. But the announcement that I wanted to make was like so many pious souls of ISV, the exhortal devotees, they made so many pledges for the Gita Jayanti festival. And Vaisesika Prabhu has given us a special CD to be given as a gift for all those who pledged. And that CD talks about the importance of chanting. So the first 30 devotees who make the payments on their pledges will get that special CD that Vaisesika Prabhu gave me. Sundarananda Prabhu, can you show that CD, Prabhu? That, on Prabhupada describing on chanting, it's a very wonderful CD. So please, our goal is to get all the pledges paid by the end of the year. So please make arrangements to pay your pledges. Thank you very much.
So we'll sing Prasadam prayers. Vrindavan will lead Prasadam prayers. No? Okay. Oh, okay, he'll do it. And then we'll take Prasadam together. Hare Krishna.
Can you start with Mahaprasad?
Yeah, you can start.
Mahaprasade Govinde Namo Brahmani Vaishnave Sabha Punyavatam Rajan Vishwasolichayate Prasade Sarva Dukkana Aniryasa Prajayate Prasanjayate Yasu Buddhi Paryavasitate Mahaprasad Maslad Jadat Gorinjaya Taikat Vishwasere Vishishake Java Mata Jiva Ut Globo Mai Sudharmati Tavachitayuta Samsar Krishna Bada Doyamo Haribata Jiva Jo Swapna Prasthiti Lobai Say now Mittapa Radha Krishna Gunaga Prema Thakur Chaitanya Nita Jani Mai Jani Tai Jai Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasa Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare Jaya Jaya.
Actually, since it's not too many devotees, maybe we can just serve in one of the kids' rooms, and that will be very easy to clean. And we can all just sit there and take prasad. So we don't have to clean the big room. Thank you. Hare Krishna.